Xiao Li is 14 years old. She lives in the small village Daze in Shanxi province, one of the less developed corners of North China. She was abandoned as a baby because of a severe spinal condition. Xiao Li may have been born into a hard life, but she and her family are not struggling alone. She has received much-needed assistance from a program jointly run by China's Ministry of Civil Affairs and the UN's Children Fund, otherwise known as UNICEF. For her, the program offers a place to have fun and to learn, a place that's called Children's Home.刘胜老师和平常的老师一样吗？
他就是感觉让人很亲切，
是吧？
没有隔阂感。
In Daze village, the children's home is run by Zheng Rong, whom the program trained as a barefoot social worker. But this isn't her only responsibility. For the past 17 years, she's been a math teacher in the village's primary school.
平常做老师的话，主要是关注孩子学习方面的情况。
Being a teacher means you pay more attention to children's learning. They may not be fully aware of civil policies or welfare services. However, being the child director is different. We know more about related policies than their parents or the teachers. We can provide the resources they need in time.
The Barefoot Social Workers program aims to bridge the gap for China's most vulnerable children by building a community-based child welfare system. Since 2014, when Zheng welcomed the chance to become a local barefoot social worker, she's supervised the well-being of the nearly 400 children in the entire village. Just as important, she's helped provide specific services to the children most in need, such as applying for residence identity documents, subsistence allowances, medical treatment, and so on. With years of practice, Zheng has a clearer understanding of her role, which goes far beyond just providing economic and social support.
For example, the children in need. Their difficulties are temporary. When the basic needs are met, what other problems need to be solved? Maybe psychological problems, and also any developmental problems of the children. So in the past few years, we've put more effort into the children's development instead of just focusing on taking care of their basic needs.
Zheng says she's experienced many gratifying moments when solving problems for children in need. Yet, she's also had to deal with the frustration when there is little she can do but offer emotional support. In Daze, for instance, 67 children, or nearly 1/4 of all those in the village, are so-called left-behind children, meaning their parents have left them at home with grandparents while they search for work in cities. Zheng Rong says she tries her best to create opportunities to strengthen the ties between these children and their parents.
Now the entire society is paying more attention to the left-behind children. We raise awareness among parents by sending them some extra examples. However, we can't avoid the separation of children and parents. What we can do is persuade parents to come back more often to spend time with their children, encourage them to have more communication with their children, even if it's just by video chats. Today, this event is about parent-child interaction. Regardless of whether the children draw well or not, as long as the children draw, the parents are very happy. And for the children, no matter what kind of people they draw, you can see the people's happy faces. I think if the children can feel love, learn how to love others here, these are the most important things.
啊，今年6月才回来。那之前等于孩子就和爷爷奶奶跟爷爷奶奶在一起。从上学就开始来吗？对，5年了。有5年了。你喜欢这儿吗？郑老师会带他们做一些亲子活动啊。看做一些游戏啊。
在外面待了2年但是孩子不让出去，所以我今年终于出去了。孩子吧，有的时候在家里的话不跟我们说，但是的话，在学校的话会跟老师他们说。再一个就是我们工作的话忙，没时间跟孩子交流，所以说我感觉这个特别好。
How many barefoot social workers are there today, like Zheng Rong, across China? How was this program first initiated, and how many children have benefited from it over the years? To learn more, I spoke with Miss Cynthia McCaffrey, the UNICEF representative to China, who was also visiting the children's home in Dazi. I started by asking if what she observed here was exactly what the UNICEF hoped for when they first began this Barefoot Social Workers program.
I think we're on the right track. I think that what we saw there were children with Madame Zheng and also with their caregivers, grandparents and mothers in some cases. And there we saw children that are in a safe place, learning with each other, and that community that was so important. I think the challenge there is how do we make sure that we reach those hundreds of millions of Chinese children so that that quality of safety, of care, of learning is everywhere.
So the Barefoot Social Worker program, which started from very humble beginnings in 2010 with only 120 villages covered in 5 provinces, now is all over the country, reaching over 500,000 communities. Indeed, a very stunning figure. So what about this program that makes it so successful and so popular that the Chinese government want to push it all over the country?
You're absolutely right. We started from humble beginnings in 120 villages and worked with the government to help train 120 barefoot social workers in those villages. And with that initial program, together we reached 130,000 children. So as you've said, we and the government of China have decided that this is a national program. So we will support the government as they continue to train social workers that will be in each of those communities. So they have a goal of training over 600,000 social workers and a goal of reaching over 200 million of China's children.
The name of this program is very interesting, Barefoot Social Workers. Actually, my mother was a barefoot doctor. And if anybody dig a little bit into the history of China, you would know in the 1960s there were many barefoot doctors all over China visiting homes and visiting villages who are not fortunate enough to have access to hospitals and quality care. So it was a very popular and very successful initiative back then. Why was this program named Barefoot Social Worker? What do you want to achieve with that?
Right. Well, when you said that your mother was a barefoot doctor, that gave me chills. And that means you understand exactly what we're trying to do. We're trying to build on something that was a great success in China. And what we're trying to do is bridge the gap between children and families who need help to those people who can give them that help. So very simple. Give people on the ground who know the dialects, the traditions of a community. They see the children, they see the families, and when they see that they need assistance, they can get them to that assistance. Or because they have some basic knowledge, they may be able to provide that assistance.
How do you see the UNICEF's role in helping bridge the policy with the potential beneficiaries of these policies?
Well, UNICEF knows children, and UNICEF has worked for over 70 years in all kinds of contexts and situations. So to this program, we brought our experience and knowledge working in rural areas, working with children and their families who are extremely vulnerable, and with our strong partnership of 40 years with the government of China, brought that together to say we know that there's a challenge in these communities. How do we bring our knowledge and experience together with the data and the knowledge of China that the government of China has?
So what do you provide specifically into this program, and how do you, for instance, in terms of funding and resources, how do you collaborate with the Chinese government and both the central government and the local governments to help make these programs effective?
So we're providing resources, and we provide the seed resources in order to invest in a community like we are in today, and to work with that community to identify a place and a space. Then we've provided the trainings and the materials so that we're giving the trainings and the materials, and in the different contexts, they can be calibrated to that situation or that particular community.
2016, the State Council came out with a policy paper called Opinions on Strengthening Care and Protection for Rural Left-Behind Children and Opinions on Strengthening Protection for Vulnerable Children. I understand these policy papers were an vindication, let's say, of the effectiveness of the Barefoot Social Worker Program. That's why they want to push it across the country. Why do you think the Chinese government has discovered the values of these approaches and want to build it and wanted to scale it up?
I think three things. One is that they've seen the need, so that we've identified a real need of reaching the most vulnerable, orphans, reaching children left behind or affected by migration. The second is that we've developed this together. We've identified this need together, and we've identified a way to try to address it. The Barefoot Social Worker Program was something that we came up with working as a team with different expertise. And then third, because we gathered that data, learned lessons from the pilots that we've done together, then they're ready to scale it quickly.
Is that something unique, how you operate here in China, or is pretty much how UNICEF does its work everywhere around the world?
I think the model we have in China is particularly successful because of coming in from the very beginning with the Chinese government and identifying the problem together, what we're trying to solve. Secondly is piloting these demonstration projects so that we're learning as we're going. And that makes the scaling much easier because it's not something that we bring later to the government. We've worked on it from the beginning, therefore they've seen the success and they can make their investment as soon as they also have seen the same success. We really want to be able to say that we have created programs, that we have helped inform policies, budget investments in China that reach every vulnerable child, so that every child gets an early start and healthy start in life, gets ready for school, that is able to then complete school with the skills that he or she needs to have the opportunities that he or she deserves.
Coming from New York, and only recently, I understand, a couple of months ago you arrived, how do you see China's position at this moment in terms of children's welfare development, and how do you see UNICEF's role in helping giving China's children welfare program a boost along the way?
Just being a newcomer to China is one of the things that impresses me, is that everyone will often say children are your future. China believes that. China's investing in its children. At the same time, China moves quickly. So things change very fast. Working with the government of China, we built up the cold chain system. We enabled the health system to reach universal coverage. That meant that all Chinese children were protected from diseases like measles, tetanus, things like that. So that's an incredible accomplishment. Some countries are still trying to reach universal health coverage. Similarly, looking at education, we worked together and introduced with the government of China what we call child-friendly kindergartens. All children everywhere, not just the privileged, were ready for school. The government has taken that program and invested $8 billion to really make sure that there are kindergartens available for all Chinese children. Being able to work with the government to continue to ask the right questions, focus on where are the most vulnerable, continuing to gather that evidence and those lessons so that we can inform policies and legislation that China needs to have to protect all of its children.
Yeah. Do you foresee, however, one day that this barefoot element will be gone, that China will really start to develop a real professional, quality healthcare, welfare care system for children, and what will be the role of UNICEF then?
Absolutely. China is in the process of developing that rigorous professional social worker cadre of professionals, and we're encouraging it. So absolutely, and I think the Barefoot Social Worker Program is a bridge. It might evolve into something else, having professionals who are in the community. That is always a value. UNICEF's goal is to continue to work as a partner to help China take on the responsibility, and it's doing that, but to work with them so that they are the leaders in the social welfare program. We're just helping to catalyze ideas, share things that have worked for us in China and elsewhere in other countries.
I hope you enjoyed our look back at the work of the UNICEF and its collaboration with the Chinese people. Join us again when we'll be continuing to reflect on 40 years of the China-UN partnership.
And that's going to do it for this edition of The Point. As always, follow us on Facebook and Twitter using the handle The Point with LX. Download the CGTN app to watch our show on your mobile devices, or go to YouTube and look for CGTN The Point. Thanks for watching. You've got The Point.